Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session Security Audit Basics Tips for Effective Governance and Risk Management. I am Reenal Vikiria, and I'll be your host for the day. Before we get started, we would like to go over a few house rules. For our attendees, the session will be in listen only mode and will last for an hour, out of which last 15 minutes will be dedicated to Q&A. Also, admissions are currently open. For further details about our courses, please visit our website www.eccu.edu. Our speaker for today's session is Sami Rifky. With over 20 years of experience in auditing, IT governance, and risk management, Sami has earned numerous international certifications, including CISA, CCSO, CRISC, and many more. Throughout his professional career, Sami has actively contributed to enhancing IT auditing and governance practices in Morocco and across Africa. He was elected Vice President of the Institute of Internal Auditors (IIA) Morocco and President of the ISACA Casablanca chapter, where he currently serves as Vice President. Sami's experience is categorized by a collaborative, result-driven approach as an audit and risk business partner, helping organizations achieve measurable and attainable goals while ensuring compliance in the industrial and banking sectors. He has also implemented several digital solutions to increase efficiency and drive digital transformation in GRC activities, including internal audit, risk management, internal control, and data analytics. Without any further delay, I would now hand over the session to you, Sami.
Thank you, Reinal. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining this webinar. I would like to thank EC Council University for inviting me for this session of Cyber Talks. So today we will talk about the basics of security audits and sharing some tips of effective governance and risk management. And the learning objectives for this session include understanding the importance and approach of security audits, getting an overview of major security frameworks and their implementation, and learning about audit planning, preparation, and execution. We will also be discussing risk assessment and management, integrating audit findings into security policies and security governance and compliance best practices. So our agenda for this session will be divided into 3 parts. In part 1, we will be discussing IT audit fundamentals or IT audit basics. In part 2, we will be covering information security governance. And in the last part number 3, we will be discussing IT security audits and controls. So let's start with the part 1, IT audit fundamentals. So an IT audit is the formal examination or testing of information systems to determine whether they are in compliance with the applicable laws, regulations, contracts, or industry guidelines. It also checks whether information systems and related processes comply with the governance criteria and related and relevant policies and procedures. Additionally, an IT audit checks whether IT data and information have appropriate level of the triad, as you know, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and whether IT operations are accomplished with efficiently and effectiveness to meet their goals or their targets. When we talk about audit, the audit process typically involves 3 stages: the planning stage, the field work or documenting stage, which we can call also execution stage, and the reporting follow-up stage, related to recommendation. So these main phases can be further broken into sub-phases. For example, the reporting phase, the last one, the 3rd phase, can be broken into report writing or report issuance. Also, we can issue follow-up for recommendation. We can add audit closing, including validation with the auditees, etc. So any organization can name these phases as they can be customized as long as the procedure and outcome comply with applicable audit standards. Let's move to the next slide. So everyone talk about audits, etc. But the question is when to audit. And when it comes to deciding when to audit, there are several factors to consider. Audit planning includes both short-term and long-term planning. So short-term planning involves all audit issues that will be covered during the year, while long-term planning takes into account all risks related to the organization IT strategic direction. So other factors also to be considered include new control issues, change in risk landscape, risk environment, technologies, new technologies, using of emergent technologies like the use of AI and Gen AI today, etc., and also the transformation in business processes. So there are a lot of many factors to be considered to start or to perform our audits. And the role of an IT auditor in compliance is to determine an organization's level of compliance with the government or other relevant external requirements dealing with electronic data, personnel data, corporate, e-commerce, e-signatures, etc. So it's also included computer system practices and controls, the manner in which computers, programs and data are stored, and the organization of activities of IT technology services. And the IT audit steps for determining organization and compliance include documenting applicable laws and regulations, assessing whether management and IT function have considered the relevant external requirements in their plans, policies, standards, procedures, etc. We will see further in our presentation during this webinar some slide about security policy and what kind of security policy and what kind of types we have in our security policy. Also, the IT auditor should review the internal IT department function activities wherever with a huge focus on documentation that address alignment with laws and industry guidelines. Also, he needs to determine adherence to these procedures that address requirements and determine if there is a lot of procedure in place to ensure that contracts, agreements, etc., with IT internal and external IT providers reflect the legal requirements related to their responsibilities. Usually, when we talk about audit or IT audits, a word of risk come out, and we are talking about what we call the risk-based auditing. It means that audit it is not an activity that comes from nowhere. It is an activity that is based on risk auditing, and this is another important aspect of IT auditing. Why? Because it involves taking into account factors such as knowledge of the business acumen, for example, and the industry, prior years audit results, recent financial information, regulatory status, inherent risk assessment, etc. And all these inputs put more awareness to the auditor to be more aware about the environment and the landscape when he will perform his audits. So the IT auditor should identify key controls to be tested, perform tests on reliability, risk prevention, and adherence to the organization policies and procedures, and use analytical procedures and detailed tests of account balance to create recommendation. So there is like a flow of process when we create recommendation. We need to have a lot of awareness, knowledge about the organization, perform our tests, substance test and compliance tests, and come up at the end by our recommendation, which have to add value to the existing structure of the organization. Also, by understanding the nature of the business, IT auditor can identify and categorize the type of risks that will be better determining the risk model or approach or the risk level in conducting audits. So as you see in the slide, when we talk about risk management process, it's like an ongoing and continuous process. It is not one-shot process. So when we identify our business objectives, we go through identifying assets that support these business objectives. Assets like people, like infrastructure, ERP, information systems, etc. And once we have the list or inventory of our assets, we need to start a risk assessment by identifying the link between threats and vulnerabilities, and by calculating our probability and impact. So we can draw a heat map of our risks and see which kind of risk we need to focus on. And when we perform our risk, we map them, and we start by what we call the risk treatment. And the risk treatments, we can avoid risk, we can mitigate risk, we can transfer risk, etc. And the ongoing process is to do a periodic re-evaluation when we see, for example, as we talked earlier in previous slide, about changing in industry landscape, changing in control area, changing in new use of emerging technology, etc. So now let's move on to the part 2 of our presentation, which focus on information security governance. And as you know, the strategic direction of a business is defined by the business goals and objectives. Information security must support business activities to be of value to the organization. Information security governance is a subset of a corporate governance that provides strategic direction for security activities and ensure that these objectives are achieved. It ensures also that information security risk is appropriately managed and enterprise and information are used responsibly. So we talk about the information security governance, and information security governance is a framework generally consisting of a comprehensive security strategy intrinsically linked with business objective. And we talk here about the alignments. We need to have an alignment with the business objectives, with the business direction, and with our security, information security governance. We cannot navigate through the enterprise, put in some controls, security controls, etc., without having this alignment. It is very vital as a starting point. And when we use business objective, governance security policies addresses each aspect of the strategy, of controls, of regulations, etc. And we can have like a complete set of standards for each policy to ensure that the procedures and guidelines comply with this policy. And effective security organization structures avoid conflict of interest or institutional monitoring process, ensuring that compliance and feedbacks are here with continuous monitoring to ensure that the policy is effective, surely effective. Also, we talked about information security governance, but how we can be sure that this information security governance is really effective? First of all, what is information for an enterprise? Information, we all know what is information, but the definition that we have for information is a key resource for all enterprise. And from the time the information is created or received to the moment that it is destroyed, technology plays a significant role. So IT is increasingly advanced and has become pervasive in enterprise and in social and public businesses. So effective information security governance helps to maintain high quality information to support business decisions during the whole life cycle of the information inside the enterprise. So it generates business value from IT enabled investments. So there is an alignment and there is a justification for our IT investment when we are aligned with business and when we generate value to the business. And we can achieve what we call operational excellence through the reliable and efficient application of technology and maintaining also IT-related risk, as we saw earlier, at an acceptable level, at a level on which the board of director, etc., they are agreed on and they are aligned with their risk, what we call the risk appetite. Also, we can optimize the cost of IT services and technologies and comply with ever increasing relevant laws, regulations, contractual agreements, etc., etc. So what are the outcomes of effective information security governance? These outcomes include performance measurement, resource management, and process integration. So this kind of framework provides the basis for development of a cost-effective information security program that will support the organization business goals. So we need to focus on these three components to be sure that our security program will bring a lot of value or added value to the business goals, to the enterprise business goals. Let's move to the security policy. So the security policy for information and related technology is a first step toward building the security infrastructure for technology-driven organizations. It communicates a coherent security standards to users, management, and technical staff, and it should be used by IT auditors as a reference framework, as a basis of their audits for performing any audit assignments. The adequacy and the appropriateness of this policy is also an area of review during an IT audit. So we can rely on the information policy as a framework when we audit IT security inside the IT department or inside the enterprise, but also as an IT auditors, we need to be aware and to check if this policy is accurate, if it's aligned with the best practices, with the laws, with the enterprise goals, etc. So there is both sides of reviewing or assessing security policy. And when we talk about policy, there are a lot of components, and it comprises also a set of policies, generally addressing concerns as a high-level information security, like the data classification policy and user computing policy, access control policy, acceptable use policy, etc., etc. It depends on the enterprise size, on the complexity, on the maturity and the level of using of emergent and existing technology, etc. But there is not one or only one policy. There are a lot of policies that can be regrouped in the security policy. And when we talk about information security governance, we talk about the responsibility of the board of directors, and this kind of and also the executive management. And this is the subset of the corporate governance. This kind of responsibility, it provides strategic direction for security activities and ensure that the objectives are achieved. So an information security program comprises the leadership, the organizational structure, the process, and the safeguard information. Now let's move to the third part, which is IT security audit and controls. And here we will explore the key components of IT security audit and controls. We will focus on managerial, technical, and physical aspects. I'll try also to walk you through some practical strategies for environmental and logical access control audit, ensuring that your organization's IT infrastructure is robust and resilient against a variety of threats. So we will begin with by understanding the three fundamental categories of security controls. As you see on the slide, there are three types of security controls. We have managerial controls, technical controls, and physical controls. So managerial controls, these are the oversight mechanism tied to reporting procedures and operational process. They ensure that organizations' governance framework are aligned with its risk management strategy. So this kind of controls are high-level controls. They check if the organization objective, the organization goal are aligned, and that there is a corporate governance framework inside the enterprise that that is effective and ensure this alignment. The second type of controls, they are technical controls, and as IT staff, etc., we all know what kinds of technical controls. This involves the technology that you use to safeguard the information, such as firewalls, encryption, IDS, intrusion detection systems, antivirus, etc., etc. So this is the kind of tools that are technicals that we use to have some automatic or continuous controls. And the last type of the controls, we talk about physical controls, and these are the tangible safeguards like locks, access cards, surveillance, CCTV, cameras designed to protect physical assets and facilities. Each of these control types plays a vital role in an effective security strategy. And today we will dive deeper into how to audit this control efficiently. We will dive into each type of this control and see some examples and how you can, as an IT auditor, review them or assess them. So let's start by the physical access audits. When we audit in physical access, the IT auditor should start with a tour of the site. He needs to do a tour of the site or the facility, etc. This initial assessment is crucial for identifying vulnerabilities and ensuring that all physical safeguards such as locks, access controls, surveillance system, operations, etc. are adequate and are also documented. For instance, checking the access point to critical area like computer and printers room, UPS, generator location, and offsite backup storage facilities should be a standard part of your audits. Many framework like ISO 27, etc., they run through each part of this kind of physical security audit through visual observations and document review. So the auditor needs to have like a good observation skills, and also he needs to combine what he observed by visiting the site by the documentation he received from the auditees, from the staff that are handling the facilities, and he needs to inspect, for example, fire system, key logs, and at the end he needs to assess the adequacy of the controls in place related to the risks and the importance of the risk related to the facility or the site. Let's move to the second type, which is environmental exposures. And next, let's consider environmental exposure. These can range from power failures like blackouts or brownouts, which is less dangerous than the blackout. So it's a partial stop for electrical supply. Also water damage, or even man-made concerns like vandalism, terrorism, etc. An effective audit will evaluate the organization's preparedness for such events by reviewing the installation and maintenance of relevant controls. You can see on this slide some of these examples, and we have, for example, alarm control panels, water detectors, fire extinguisher, fire alarms, fire suppression systems, fireproof buildings, emergency power off switch, etc., etc. This is just some examples, and we can. As an IT auditor, for example, you should verify the presence and functionality of fire suppression system, for example, or water detection, or an interruptible power supplies, which we call UPS. Also, the key here is to ensure that these controls are documented, tested regularly, and there are backups in plan, like documentation or like business continuity plans, BCPs, or emergency evacuation plans. So not only we need to check if they are working and they are performing their duties as a control, all of this kind of environmental control, but also we need to check because we need to protect the most important asset, which is human life, and we need to be sure that there is an emergency evacuation plan, there is a continuity plan, and that even in case of catastrophic events, we can protect our staff and our assets. Okay, so let's move to logical access. Logical access control is another critical area where auditors must focus. This involves ensuring that identification, authentication, and authorization mechanisms are correctly implemented to protect information assets. So as an auditor, your role is to evaluate whether these controls are effective in preventing unauthorized access by having like the logs and the audit trails, etc., to check in them and see if there is that authorization are aligned with need to know basis. So audit login, for example, regular reviews of the system. We can generate, as I said, audit trail or logs for analysis. They are essential for detecting anomalies, such as an attempt to exceed access authority, for example, or unauthorized access during unusual hours, for example, during weekends or at night, etc. Also, we must ensure that these logs cannot be tampered with, cannot be altered, or cannot be deleted, and also that any violations are promptly followed up. It means that we need to be sure that the logs and the audit trails remain at the same state and can be checked by auditors to see if there is any violation or attempt to violation to access our system. And the auditing logical access process begins with the familiarization with IT environments. As we said, we cannot audit something without knowing the business objective, because any IT system, IT application, it was created to support IT business process. So we need to understand the business process. We need to understand the IT environment and assess and document access paths. So we can do this by requesting documentation, but also by interviewing the relevant personnel. Also by reviewing access control software reports and application system manuals, auditors can assess the effectiveness of the logical access controls and identify any gaps or area for improvement. Let's move to another kind of risk that the IT auditor need to review. It is cloud computing, and cloud computing introduces an unique challenges for IT auditors. Why? Because the decentralized nature of cloud services can complicate traditional audit process, particularly concerning data ownership, custody, and security. So in this kind of audit, when we are facing cloud services, when we are auditing our IT, or we are like a consultant auditor and we are auditing IT for other enterprise, and we are facing cloud computing, we must be aware of the legal requirements and the unique risks associated with cloud environment, like GDPR, privacy requirements, local requirements, etc. Also, we need to check the limitation on the right to audit for vendor facilities, because sometimes when you contract with the cloud provider, you have your contract and you need to see inside your contract if there is a right to audit paragraph inside your contract, which will allow you to perform your audit. Otherwise, you cannot audit your cloud environment. Also, another emerging technology which is increasing today, it's mobile computing controls. as organizations of today rely more and more on mobile computing, tablets, smartphone, etc., it is vital to have a robust controls in place. So auditors should ensure that mobile devices are securely registered, tagged, physically protected, and that data stored on these devices is encrypted and compliant with corporate policies. There are a lot of tools to enroll the devices, to be sure that we can erase them remotely, etc. So additionally, measures such as remote wipe capabilities, geolocalization tracking, and secure remote support must be in place with tools and staff, etc., to mitigate the risk associated with mobile computing. And as you see on the slide, there is some controls related to mobile computing, like encryption, physical security, tagging. We talk also about BIOD agreement, which means bring your own device. A lot of enterprise today, they allow their staff and employee to have their own device. This kind of policy need to be backed up by lots of controls to be sure that the device are enrolled and aligned with the security policy in place. So let's move to another aspect related to security audits, which is computer crimes and security testing technique. So we understand that the various types of computer crimes, such as denial of service, attacks, hacking, and phishing, is crucial for auditors. So effective security testing techniques such as attempting to bypass security controls or testing log-ons or passwords, etc., are essential tools in an auditor's arsenal. These techniques help us to identify vulnerabilities that could be exploited and also ensure that security measures are resilient against potential threats. As you see on the slide, some of the threats that we can face, or cyber attacks like phishing, hacking, masquerading, eavesdropping, etc. Some of these attacks become more and more easy for beginners to perform them, which we need to consider during an audit. So let's move to some security testing techniques. Security testing is a critical component of an IT audit. These are several techniques that auditors can employ to evaluate the effectiveness of security controls. First, auditors can use what we call sample cards and keys to test physical access control by attempting to gain access beyond what is authorized. We can, for example, identify weaknesses in the system using some sample cards and see if the system responds to these sample cards. And if the system physically responds to these sample cards, we need to strengthen the system because it is not related to only the authorized card. Secondly, we can, as a testing technique, we can use what we call the terminal identification, which involves inventorying terminals to check for missing or additional terminals that haven't been properly logged or haven't been seen in our inventory. So this ensures that all access points are accounted for and are secure, and there is no like dark side on which we cannot see our inventory or our assets, and from which a lot of threats will be considered. Also, we should focus on testing logons, IDs, and passwords. This involves guessing passwords or finding them in an insecure location, physical location. Some people write their passwords in a piece of paper or in an agenda or in a post-it, etc. And as well by attempting to view some internal password tables and see if our applications, solutions, etc. are robust, so we cannot access our password tables. And by doing so, we can assess the strength of authentication mechanism we have in place and ensure that unauthorized access is prevented. Continuing with our security testing technique, let's talk about computer access controls. So auditors should work closely with system software analysts to ensure that all access is granted on a need-to-know basis, thereby minimizing unnecessary access to sensitive information. So people who don't have the need-to-know basis access, they don't have to have any access to our system, or they don't have to upgrade their access to another level beyond what they need to know or what they have as responsibilities or as the use of system. Also, another critical area in computer access violation logging and reporting. So we could talk about login and reporting. We talked before about ID login. So auditors should attempt to access data or transaction for which they are not authorized, and then it's like a pen test, and then review security reports to ensure that these unsuccessful attempts are recorded and followed up appropriately. And lastly, auditors must be vigilant about bypassing security and compensating controls. Collaborating with network manager, operation manager, and security administrator, we can identify potential methods to bypass existing security measures and then implement compensating control to mitigate these risks. When we talk about compensating control, there are a type of controls that we can use if the initial or the main controls are failing. So it's like a backup of controls. So when an attack or a threat destroy like the first line of defense, the first control, we use the compensating control to be sure to be sure that we have like a notification of this kind of attempt and a reaction to protect the assets from the threat. So as a conclusion, as IT security audits are an essential part of governance and risk management. And by focusing on managerial, technical, and physical controls, and this is a kind of cybersecurity controls in a connected world, as you know, and by being also vigilant in areas such as environmental exposure, logical access, new emerging technologies like cloud computing, mobile device, use of AI, Gen AI, etc., we can significantly reduce risks and ensure that the integrity of our information system are met. So I would like to thank you again for your attention, and I look forward to your questions and comments. Thank you. I hand the mic to Reinel for the Q&A and the poll session.
Thank you, Sami, for delivering such an informative session, and our attendees share the same sentiments. If you're interested to learn more about our program, do let us know in the poll that's going to be conducted now. Let us know your preferred mode of training, and we will reach out to you soon. Also, admissions are currently open. For comprehensive details regarding our courses, kindly visit our official website, www.eccu.edu. So, shall we start with the Q&A, Sami?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the first question is, auditing policies for industrial IoT. Is there anything to take in account? Does what you talk about today apply to industrial IoT as well?
Okay, so first, thank you for this very interesting question. Thank you for bringing up this topic of IoT in industrial facilities. And this is the kind of risk that are growing and growing today, because a lot of facilities, a lot of plants, they are using IoTs in order to increase their productivity, etc. And the policy, when we talk about security policy, it's a high-level policy. So it includes, we talked about cloud, we talk about mobile, etc. But also it includes IoT device, because IoT device are considered as IT assets, even if they are integrated or are component of an industrial facility. And sometimes when we are in industrial facilities, we consider them as more as OT or industrial than IT, but they are IT, they remain IT stuff. Sometimes a lot of IoT, they are connected. So when we are connected, we are facing cyber risks. And in order to have a policy that align with the enterprise goals and enterprise strategic direction, we cannot not include this kind of assets, because if we don't have a continuity plan, if we don't have security plan, etc., damage on industrial facilities is more important than the damage on some other IT assets. As we saw, for example, in previous attacks, Stuxnet, as you know, in Iran, and the Stuxnet, it was like a first attempt on industrial facilities through a cyber attack, and the consequences was or would be huge, even on human lives. So thank you for bringing up this question.
Thank you for answering that, Sami. Next question is, do we have the same process for OT also? Anything specific we need to take care while auditing OT infrastructure?
Yes, as I said, I think the two questions are closely related, but I'll add some insights about the OT part. So when you audit in OT or IT, we can do the same process, because as I said, auditing, it's like the framework is the same. We prepare for the audit, we go through execution, and we come up with our recommendation and reports, etc. And when we are auditing OT, we need to include more than when we are auditing IT. Why? Because there is an industrial component that it's huge for the enterprise. Because when we have OT, it means we are inside an industrial organization, and the plants and the industrial parts are inside the strategic direction of the enterprise. So we need to do some audits, but sometimes we have, and I think a lot of you will consider this, we don't have the same overseen on our OT than on IT. For example, you can have like operating system for some OT that are not up to date or sometimes out of support, and we can still continue using them even if they are out of support, because we said we are protected, we are not connected, etc., etc. But in my point of view, I think we need to consider IT and OT at the same level. And in order to have an integrated security policy, we need to put the two components inside this policy. As I said during the slides, the security policy is not one policy. It's a lot of policies incorporated in one. We're talking about classification, data classification, user policy, etc. And we can include IoT policy also, or OT policy. So thank you for your question.
Thank you for answering that, Sami. Our next question is, generative AI, how this audit process should be addressed?
So today, I think auditing generative AI, it's not like, it depends on the use of generative AI inside the enterprise. For example, the first thing to have, we talked about policies, etc. Each enterprise need to be transparent with their employees, with their staff, and see what kind of use of generative AI inside the enterprise, and draw it in a framework or in a policy. So to be sure that what people are using inside the enterprise are aligned with the enterprise. So sometimes we have what we call shadow EI. And shadow EI, it's when people are using EI inside the enterprise without the consent of the enterprise and without without having the knowledge of the enterprise. And sometimes it could be like it could cause a leak of sensitive information. For example, when someone used ChatGPT or Copilot and upload the documents and say, please, can you summarize the document, etc., or answer this kind of email, etc., they are uploading sensitive information, and we are facing a risk of data leak or sensitive information leak. And to prevent this kind of use, I think enterprise need to start by awareness. Everyone talk about cybersecurity awareness, etc., but we need also EI awareness and Gen EI awareness, and how inside our companies we can use responsibly EI. For example, using it for email, using, for example, Copilot when we have a license for Copilot officially inside the enterprise, etc. And to perform audits about this kind of emerging technology, we need to be sure that the auditors also understand the risks and the emerging risks related to Gen EI. And oversee what kind of tools, what kind of outputs they need to check when they are performing their audits. So thank you for your question.
Thank you for answering that, Sami. Our next question is, how does information security or audit and incident management work?
So incident management is a process which is well established by a lot of frameworks like ET, like ISO 20000, etc. And incident management it's an operational process, which means it is a continued process. It is day-to-day process, because when we have incident, we need to respond to incident to assess the incident, etc. But auditing, it's not a continuous process. We can have continuous auditing, but when we start to plan our audits depending on the risk-based audit and the direction of the enterprise, etc., it's not a continuous audit. And we can audit incident management, for example, process. We can perform an audit only related to incident management and see what kind of incidents are handled. Are we effective during our incident management process? Do we have the documentation needed for our incident process? Do we run like satisfaction survey with our employees and see if the delay related, for example, to service level agreements are met, etc., etc. So we can audit the incident process management, but it's not the same as auditing. Auditing, it's more global activity, and it's triggered by the enterprise need of having assurance about their activities, about the effectiveness and the safety of their activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Sami. Our next question is, how can organizations effectively manage global data security compliance while maintaining strong security?
I think this is a huge challenge for enterprise today. When we talk globally about maintaining data compliance, we talk about a lot of regulation, and the word that comes to my mind is privacy. And the protection of personal information data. And as you know, when we are operating in Europe or we are dealing with European citizens, we need to comply with GDPR. If you are operating in the US, it depends on which state in the US we are. California, we have Privacy Act, etc., etc. In Brazil also, we have and in Africa also we have a lot of laws related to privacy. So when we are a global company or global enterprise, we have a lot of bureaus, a lot of sites all over the world. This is a huge challenge because we need to be sure that we understand all the law that applies to us related, for example, to privacy, and to be sure that we are getting an update of the evolution of this kind of law. And by seeing the other side, the use of technology and the exposure that we are facing day to day related to technology, by using the names, for example, when we talk about privacy, using personal information like name, address, birth date, etc., etc., we are having a huge challenge. And my recommendation for to reduce this kind of challenge is to start by drawing like a matrix or a map of what kind of regulation we are facing, and what is the size and the use of our IT related to this kind of regulation, and be sure at what level of maturity or compliance we are today, and drive like progressively how to augment our level of compliance. So thank you.
Thank you for answering that, Sami. Our last question for you is, could you provide examples of common challenges faced in security audits and how to address them effectively?
Okay, there are lots of challenges. We have provided some during the webinar. I can add the first challenge for auditors is the first challenge is related to skills. It means that even auditors, because they are auditing new technologies, etc., they need, the first challenge, they need to be updated. They need to have their skills updated to be aligned what we have in enterprise, and also to have a good facing with auditees when we are asking for questions, when we are analyzing documentation, etc. For example, when we are testing some controls related to firewalls, to EDR, to antivirus, this kind of technologies, they are evolving. We talk about zero trust technology. We talk about a lot of new technologies today. And if we don't have knowledge for the meaning of these technologies, their upside and downsides, and also what kind of issues we will have if we don't handle them well, auditors cannot perform their audit. So the first ingredient is, and the first challenge also, is to be sure that auditors have the good skills and continue to learn. This is not this is like a journey. So when the enterprise grow, the IT become more complicated, and the IT auditors need to be aligned with this complication and have acquired the required skills to not be like less efficient, and to add the good value for the enterprise. Thank you.
Thank you again to our wonderful speaker, Sami, for answering those questions and for the great presentation and the knowledge shared with our global audience. It was a pleasure to have you with us, Sami, and we are looking for more and more sessions with you.
Thank you everyone. Thank you for attending, and thanks
So,
for the EC Council staff. Thank you.
yes. So before we conclude the webinar, Sami, would you like to give a small message to our audience?
Yes, the message I give, it's for me, is to be aware and to be updated. As I said, we are facing an emerging technology landscape, and we cannot be sure to have skills on every kind of technology. So first of all, we need to choose what kind of technology we are facing for our day-to-day job, and try to become an expert, not an expert in developing them, but an expert in handling their risks and handling their issues and their challenges, in order to bring the most value for the enterprise. Use webinar, use like some session as the session as training provided, for example, by EC Council or any other training, to be sure that you will be up to date for the technologies, and you will ensure that your company is protected and have the most secure policy in place. So thank you.
Thank you, Sami, for the message to our audience.